Nora had always been quiet in class. She spoke softly, moved gently, and usually stayed near the back of the training hall. But even if she didn't talk much, she watched everything. She studied how people stood, how they moved, how they reacted. She noticed things others missed. That was why she was allowed to join the advanced zero-gravity coordination training. Even though she was younger than most of cadets, the training hall that day was full of floating platforms and glowing rings. The air hummed with energy as students practiced their drills. They came from many planets, each one different in size, shape, and strength. In the center stood Jax, the largest in the class. He was an alien cadet with dark silver skin and wide shoulders. He moved fast for someone his size, and he took training very seriously. The instructor called out partner names. Nora looked down at her hands, hoping she would not be given someone who used too much force. She was still learning how to balance strength and movement in zero gravity, but her name was paired with Jax. A few students turned to look. One whispered, "She's too small for him." Another said, "Jax doesn't slow down. She will get hurt." Nora heard them, but she didn't react. She simply walked forward and stopped in front of Jax. He looked surprised, almost guilty, as if worried he might accidentally break her by standing too close. "I will go slow," he said in his deep voice. "It's okay," Nora replied. "Let's just follow the steps." The drill began. They pushed off the floor and floated into the center ring. The goal was simple. Move in a circle, match balance, and redirect your partner's weight without losing control. It required gentleness, timing, and trust. Most pairs moved calmly around the ring, but Jax was nervous. He kept checking Nora, trying to make sure he didn't make a mistake. His movements became stiff instead of smooth. "Relax," Nora said softly. Jax tried, but his body still moved with too much power. When Nora stepped forward for the next part of the drill, she placed her hand on his arm, guiding him to rotate. It was supposed to be a slow turn, but Jax misread her movement. He thought she was losing balance and tried to catch her. In zero gravity, small mistakes become big ones fast. Jax grabbed her arm too quickly, trying to pull her back toward him. Nora didn't have time to adjust. Her wrist twisted at a bad angle as their bodies spun the wrong way. There was a sharp snap, light, but clear enough that both of them heard it. Nora gasped and clutched her arm. Pain shot through her wrist, hot and sudden. The room went silent for a moment. Jax froze. His eyes widened, and he held up his hands as if afraid to touch her again. "I didn't mean," he said, his voice shaking. Nora bit her lip, but kept calm. "It was an accident. It's okay." The instructor rushed over and guided Nora toward the med bay. Students whispered behind her. Did he break it? She should not train with someone that strong. She won't come back after this. Jax stayed in the center of the ring, staring at his hands. He looked as if he wanted to crawl away and hide. He knew he had messed up. His species had strict rules about control during training. Accidental harm was considered a great shame. In the med bay, the doctor scanned Nora's wrist. The screen glowed with a soft blue light. "It's a clean fracture," the doctor said. "Not serious. A few days with this brace and you'll be fine." The doctor wrapped a slim support around her wrist. It tightened gently, holding everything in place. Nora flexed her fingers and nodded. The pain was still there, but it didn't feel scary anymore. As she left the med bay, she saw Jax sitting outside the door. His head was bowed, and his hands were clasped together. When he heard her footsteps, he stood quickly. "I am sorry," he said. "I failed to control my strength. In my world, this is a serious mistake." "It was an accident," Nora said again. "I know you didn't mean it." "I injured you," he said quietly. "You should not train with me again." Nora shook her head. "I'm coming back to class tomorrow." Jax blinked. The idea seemed impossible to him. "You are hurt." "Yes," she said, "but I still want to learn." Jax didn't know what to say. No one in his culture returned to training after being injured by a partner. They stepped away, avoiding the person who caused it. But Nora didn't step away at all. She walked past him with calm, steady steps. Not angry, not afraid, just determined. Back in the training hall, the cadets kept whispering. Some said she was foolish. Others said she was brave. But everyone agreed on one thing. Nora was not like the others. And Jax, still standing near the door, watched her go. Something in his chest felt tight. Respect? Confusion? Maybe both. For the first time, he wondered if the quiet human girl was much stronger than she looked. He wondered what she would do next. Nora woke up early the next morning. Her wrist still ached, but the brace held it steady. The doctor had told her to rest, but her mind would not stop thinking about the training hall, about the moment everything went wrong, and about Jax's face when he realized what he had done. She knew he hadn't meant to hurt her. She also knew he was blaming himself far more than she blamed him. She dressed slowly, careful with her injured hand. The morning sun glowed through the dorm window, painting soft light on the walls. Most people would stay in bed after a fracture. Most would choose safety. But Nora wasn't like most cadets. She tied her shoes with one hand, then stepped outside into the quiet corridors. As she walked, she replayed the accident in her mind. She remembered the spin, the misstep, the sudden pain. But she also remembered Jax pulling away in fear, as if terrified of his own strength. She felt a small pull of sympathy. No one had taught him how fragile humans were. No one had taught her how strong he could be. They were both still learning. When she reached the training hall, the doors were still closed. She sat down on a bench nearby, letting her legs swing softly. A few minutes later, the instructor arrived and paused when he saw her. "Nora," he said, surprised, "you're up early. I thought you'd take the day off." She shook her head. "I want to keep training." He looked at her brace. "Are you sure? You don't need to push yourself." "I'm fine," she said, even though the truth was she wasn't completely fine. But she was ready. That mattered more. The instructor studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right, come in when you're ready." When the other cadets arrived, they slowed down as soon as they noticed Nora standing near the center of the room. Their whispers began immediately. "Is she crazy? She should be resting." She came back after that. Humans are strange. But Nora ignored all of it. She focused on her breathing and on the slow warm-up movements the instructor showed. Her wrist hurt when she tried to rotate her arm, so she didn't force it. She worked with her limits. She moved carefully, honestly, with patience. Halfway through warm-ups, she heard heavy footsteps behind her. She didn't need to turn around and know who it was. Jax's presence always felt like a moving wall, solid, heavy, and impossible to ignore. He walked slowly toward her, his eyes fixed on the floor. He looked even quieter than she had ever seen him. When he stopped in front of her, he kept his hands close to his chest, as if afraid they might hurt someone just by hanging at his sides. "You came back," he said softly. "Yes," Nora replied. "You should rest." "I want to learn." Jax looked confused, almost lost. "But I broke your wrist. My mistake caused you pain. Why return to the place where it happened?" "Because pain doesn't mean I should stop," Nora said. "It means I should understand what happened and get better." He lifted his eyes. "You do not fear me?" "No," she said simply. The room fell quiet. The other cadets stared. Even the instructor paused. Jack stepped back a little, surprised. On his home world, injury caused distance. It ended trust. But here, this small human didn't pull away at all. Instead, she stepped toward the training ring and motioned for him to follow. "I can't train with both hands today," she said, "but I can still move. You can practice the balance drill with me. Just go slow." Jack swallowed hard. I don't deserve to train with you." Nora looked at him calmly. "Then earn it." Something in Jax's face changed. Not pride, not anger. Something deeper. Like a spark of determination waking up. He nodded once. When they entered the ring, the whole class held its breath. Everyone expected Nora to faint, or for Jax to freeze, or for the instructor to stop them. But none of that happened. They floated slowly into the center of the circle. This time, Jax moved carefully. His large hands hovered inches away from Nora, never touching unless she guided him. She taught him how to shift his weight, without pushing too hard. She showed him how to read her motions before reacting. They moved like two parts of the same pattern. Slow, steady, learning each other's timing. At one point, Nora stumbled, and Jax reached out in instinct. His hand stopped just before touching her. He pulled back, control finally replacing fear. Good, Nora said. That's better. Jax let out a breath he had been holding. As the session went on, something unexpected happened. The other cadets stopped whispering. They stopped judging. They began watching with interest, even respect. They had never seen Jax move so gently. They had never seen Nora stand so firmly next to someone so powerful. When training ended, Nora stepped out of the ring first. Her wrist throbbed, but she didn't show it. She had done what she came to do. Jax stayed behind for a moment, looking at his hands again, but this time with a different expression. Not shame, not fear, control. He had learned something important today, and everyone in the hall knew it. Nora had come to train, but she had also begun to change the way they all saw her, and the way Jax saw himself. The days passed slowly, but Nora stayed steady. She trained every morning, even when her wrist still ached under the brace. She learned to use her other hand more, trained her balance, and sharpened her footwork. She did not rush. She did not panic. She simply improved one careful step at a time. Jax trained too. He stayed after every class, repeating the same gentle drills Nora had taught him. Sometimes she watched from the side. He still moved with great strength, but now there was something different in his steps. Patience, control, respect for the space around him. Other cadets whispered about it. They had never seen Jax change for anyone before. One morning, when Nora entered the training hall, the instructor called the class together. "Today," he said, "we will hold rematches between partners from last month. It is time to measure your progress." The room buzzed with excitement. Cadets paired up quickly, nervous and eager. Then the instructor looked at Nora and Jax. "You two will finish the session," he said. "Your match will be the last." A wave of whispers spread. Some looked shocked. Some looked worried. Others looked curious. Nora felt her stomach twist. She wasn't afraid of Jax, but she remembered the moment her wrist snapped. She remembered the pain. She remembered falling hard. She took a breath. She had worked too hard to back away now. Jax looked tense too. His shoulders were stiff, his hands curled inward. But when he met Nora's eyes, he nodded once, slow and steady. "I will not hurt you," he said softly. "I know," she answered. The class went through the earlier matches. Cadets stumbled and cheered and clashed against each other. But the whole time, everyone kept glancing at Nora and Jax, waiting for their turn. When the instructor finally called their names, the room fell silent. Even the air felt still. Nora stepped into the ring first. Her heart beat fast, but her breathing stayed calm. She had trained for this. She had healed for this. Jax walked in after her, his large frame casting a long shadow on the mat. The instructor raised his hand. "Begin." They moved slowly at first, circling each other with careful steps. This time, Nora did not rush. She watched Jax's feet, his shoulders, the small shifts in his weight. She read him like she read puzzles. Jax moved lightly, almost too lightly, afraid to make a mistake. "You can move normally," she said. "I'll be fine." He hesitated. "I don't want." "Trust me," Nora said. So he did. He stepped in with a stronger attack, still controlled but more real. Nora dodged, her feet sliding smoothly across the floor. He followed with another move, quick and practiced. She blocked with her good hand and spun away, steady on her feet. A few cadets gasped. Some whispered, "She's faster now," and "Look at her balance." Jax attacked again, but Nora didn't look scared. She looked focused, sharp. She moved with purpose, using the drills she had practiced every morning. She couldn't use her injured hand for grabs, but she didn't need to. She used momentum. She used angles. She used her brain. When Jax tried to sweep her leg, she jumped back, then stepped in close, placing one hand on his shoulder. She used his own movement against him. Turning her body in a smooth arc, Jax had to shift his footing fast to avoid falling. This time, the shock was on his face. "You improved," he said, breathless. "So, did you?" Nora answered. They moved again, this time with both giving real effort. Nora dodged under his arm, slid behind him, and tapped his back. The class murmured. She had scored a point. Jax nodded. He didn't look angry or frustrated. He looked impressed. He moved again, faster now. Nora couldn't block every strike, but she could read them, even when she stumbled once. She caught herself before falling. Jax paused, thinking she was hurt, but she just waved him on. "Keep going," she said. They pushed on, both breathing hard. The instructor watched closely, his eyes shining with pride. Other cadets leaned forward, amazed. Then it happened. Jax swung in with a sweeping attack. Nora stepped aside, spun, and used her shoulder to redirect his weight. For a moment, Jax lost balance. Not because he was clumsy, but because Nora had finally mastered the movement that had once broken her wrist. She guided him down gently, keeping control the whole time. Jax touched the floor with one knee. The entire room froze. She had won. Nora stepped back, breathing hard but steady. Jax stood slowly, staring at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You faced me again," he said quietly. "Even after I hurt you, even with one hand. You fought with courage." She smiled a little. "And you learned to hold back your strength. We both changed." The instructor raised his voice. Match complete. Winner, Nora. The class burst into cheers. Some shouted her name. Others clapped. A few looked simply amazed. Jax bowed, not out of defeat, but out of respect. "You taught me more than any instructor," he said. "You taught me control." Nora felt a warm pride settle in her chest. She had not just healed her wrist. She had overcome her fear. She had grown. And she had earned respect, not just from Jax, but from everyone in the room. The rematch had silenced the doubts, and it had begun something bigger. She stepped into the training hall with calm eyes, but everyone felt something different in the air. The class had gathered early that morning because word had already spread. Maya and Drax were going to face each other again. No one said it out loud, but they were excited, curious, and a little afraid. The last time, Drax had broken her wrist without thinking twice. Today, she returned with her wrist healed, her mind sharper and her heart steady. Drax stood in the center of the floor. His huge frame made the floor panels creak. He looked confident, almost bored, like he already knew how the match would end. He crossed his arms and waited for her. A few students whispered behind their hands, saying he might hurt her again. Others said she should not fight at all. But Maya did not listen to any of them. She walked straight, her steps slow and balanced, her eyes fixed on him. The instructor raised his hand to begin the match. But before he could speak, Maya bowed. It was a small, respectful bow, but made the room fall silent. Drax hesitated for a moment and gave a lazy bow back. Then the match began. Drax moved first, fast and aggressive. He always fought with power, using his size to crush opponents. He swung his arm at her shoulder, the same way he had done the day of the accident. But this time Maya did not block with strength. She shifted her foot by a single inch, letting his strike pass her side. The students gasped softly. She moved like water, quiet, smooth, without force. Drax growled and attacked again, faster. Maya watched him closely. She had spent weeks studying his movements while she healed. She knew he always led with his right arm. She knew he never adjusted his footing when he got angry. And right now, he was getting angry fast. He lunged at her again, trying to grab her. Maya turned her shoulders and stepped behind him. For a moment, he lost sight of her. She tapped his back with 2 fingers and stepped away before he could react. It was not an attack, just a reminder. He spun around with a frustrated shout. The students leaned forward. No one had ever made Drax look slow before. He charged again, but this time Maya did not move back. She moved in. The moment surprised him, and his balance broke for half a breath. That half breath was all she needed. She slipped under his arm, placed her foot lightly behind his heel, and shifted her weight. It was a gentle motion, almost soft, but to Drax, it felt like the world tilted sideways. His massive body fell to the floor with a heavy, echoing thud. The class went completely silent. Drax blinked up at the ceiling, stunned. Maya stood at his side, calm and breathing evenly. She had not hurt him. She had not used strength. She had used control, timing, and understanding. She offered him her hand. He stared at it for a long moment. Then, slowly, he took it. She helped him stand. And when he stood, he did something no one had ever seen him do. He bowed to her. A deep, respectful bow. The class gasped again, but this time it was not from fear or shock. It was from awe. Maya nodded back, soft but confident. Her move had spoken louder than any word she could say. She had shown skill without violence, strength without harm, and courage without anger. And for the first time since she had joined the academy, every single student in the room finally understood who she truly was. Not the girl who had her wrist broken. Not the weak one. Not the quiet one. She was a fighter who silenced the class with one perfect move. The news of Maya's victory spread through the academy faster than anyone expected. Students who had never spoken to her before now watched her with new eyes. They whispered her name with respect. Some even tried to copy the footwork she used against Drax, though none of them understood it the way she did. Something had changed in the academy. Something deeper than just a match result. The instructor called her to the front of the class the next day. Everyone waited quietly, wondering if she would be praised or tested again. Maya stood calmly, her hand behind her back, her eyes steady. She felt different now, not because she had won against Drax, but because she had done it with control, not anger. The instructor spoke slowly. He said that every academy needed a standard, someone who showed what true skill looked like. Most people expected him to name Drax again, because he had always been the strongest. But instead, the instructor turned to Maya. He told the class that power alone was not the future. Precision, patience, and respect were just as important. And Maya had shown all three. A soft wave of surprise went through the room. Drax stood in the back, his arms crossed. But this time he was not angry. He listened with a thoughtful look on his face. The instructor announced that from now on, the academy would add a new training routine based on the technique Maya used. It was a simple idea, using the opponent's force instead of fighting against it. Many students disliked the idea. It looked too gentle. It looked weak. But Maya knew it was not weak at all. It was harder than it looked, because it required calm thinking, not just fast muscles. When the class began practicing, students struggled. Some lost their balance, some got frustrated, and some blamed the method. Maya moved among them quietly, offering small suggestions, showing small steps, guiding hands and feet. She did not act like a leader. She simply helped where she could. At first, students resisted. They kept trying to use strength. They kept trying to overpower the movement. But when they watched Maya repeat the same technique again, slow, clear, almost effortless, they slowly began to understand. Drax was the last to approach her. He watched her silently while she demonstrated a basic turn to a group of beginners. When they walked away, he stepped up and asked her to teach him. His voice was low, almost awkward. Maya nodded without hesitation. They stood face to face again, but this time there was no anger between them. Drax tried the footwork she showed, but his steps were heavy and uneven. He grew frustrated quickly. Maya stayed patient. She explained it again, then again. She corrected his stance with a light touch. She reminded him not to push forward with all his force, but to move with the opponent's energy. It took time, but little by little, he improved, and when he finally got one motion right, he looked more surprised and proud. Maya smiled softly, and for the first time since anyone had known him, Drax smiled back. By the end of the week, the academy felt different. Students practiced together instead of competing for dominance. They watched each other closely, respecting timing and balance more than strength. The training hall sounded quieter, calmer, smarter. One afternoon, the instructor gathered everyone again. He pointed to Maya and called her the new standard of the academy. Not because she defeated the strongest fighter, but because she showed what true mastery looked like: control, peace, and clarity. For a moment, Maya felt nervous. She had never wanted attention. She had only wanted to prove to herself that she was not weak. But now she realized something new. She had set an example not by speaking, but by doing. The class bowed to her in respect. She bowed back, grateful and humble. Later that evening, as she walked out the hall, she saw Drax practicing alone. His movements were slow and serious, like he was trying to understand every detail. Maya watched for a moment, then stepped forward to join him. They practiced side by side. Two fighters who had once stood against each other, now shaping a new way for the entire academy. And from that day on, everyone agreed that the match that had silenced the class was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new standard, one that would guide every student who walked through those doors in the years to come.